How can we as Fireblocks make the wallet smaller, so they could be agentic AI size, but also more efficient?
What I would consider the interoperability for everything outside of that. So bank-to-bank communication, on and off ramps, last mile. Welcome back to The Roll Up.
This is your home to learn from the biggest guests, the brightest minds at the tip of innovation.
Our goal is to help spread the collective knowledge of everyone in our community.
We are breaking crypto out of its echo chamber and taking it to the real world.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy it. Welcome back to Money Moves Fast, the premier live show for payments, RWA's tokenization. I am here today with Rand Goldi, the head of payments at Fireblocks, amongst other important roles in his career. This show is presented by Polygon, one of the leading chains in payments for crypto, battle tested, fast, cheap, with a big upgrade coming soon. I know Fireblocks and Polygon are close friends as well. Rand, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on, man.
Thanks, Andy. Love to be here. Love the energy. This is probably one of, I would say, my most viewed shows. So thank you for having me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Rand, it's your first time. It's good to meet you as well. I'm glad that you took the time. And yeah, man, just a quick, intro about how you got into your role. You have quite the background, and I think it'd be helpful just to get some context.
Yeah, no. So I'm basically here because I've got sucked into this world about 10 years ago, into, I would say, the world of crypto by eToro's co-founder and CEO. He was the one that told me to buy my first Bitcoin before I knew what it was, and cool. I fell in love into this. And before this, I was in finance. I actually took one of my companies public before I fell in love into finance, but this was obviously different. So I started a company that was doing payments over blockchain. That was 2017. You could basically tell a taxi driver you're doing Bitcoin. He will give you money over right in there. And that was the easy part. But then obviously crypto winter, some other stormy weathers. And at the end of the day, we were able, I think, to create some really cool tech around payments, and got acquired by Fireblocks about 4 years ago. Wow. Ever since, I've been leading the payments and network divisions at Fireblocks, which has been nothing short of amazing, obviously, because the last 4 years, I think that, crypto and digital assets have been payments, right? Especially this year with stablecoins, where stablecoins are pretending to solve world hunger as well, right? So it's been a great journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think the entrepreneur to the head of a branch is a bit of a different transition, but it sounds like it was fruitful, and it sounds like you guys have built some really cool stuff, back in the day. So Fireblocks has had a very interesting journey, right? If you think back to 21 and 2019 kind of cycle, Fireblocks was the enterprise kind of network category that was kind of hot in the 2018 bear, when security tokens were kind of a thing and people were trying to figure that out, and custody was a big thing. Then Fireblocks kind of went back under the radar a bit. I feel like with the L1 cycle of 21, 22, 23, everyone was kind of gung-ho about all these other kind of crypto apps, DeFi. Now Fireblocks is right back in the center of attention. People are teasing an IPO. You guys are absolutely crushing it on the revenue side in terms of your custody business, as well as your other offerings. And so it's kind of been an ebb and a flow for the last eight-ish years of Fireblocks. And recently you have just launched what you guys are calling the Swift for Stablecoins network. So would love to hear about this, and really just would love to hear about Fireblocks' thesis as a whole for the payments kind of space in crypto, and kind of generally how you're thinking about this space as it's evolved.
All right, an easy question then. Okay, fine. So let's break it down, I guess. So, first of all, Fireblocks, I guess, consider itself first and foremost as, an infrastructure for this world, right? So if you're a payments company out there, or, a fintech like Revolut or Nubank, or, like I said, a payments company like WorldPay or Visa, whatever, and you want to build on this rail that's called blockchain. And again, our view is this is another payments rail, right? There's ACH, there's wires, there's faster payment rails out there. Blockchain is another payments rail. And if you are in the business of moving money, that's a rail you need to get connected to. Same way as I would tell you, if you're a bank, you need to connect to, the Fed, or you need to connect to Swift, whatever. So first of all, that's our thesis. And our thesis is that over time, all of obviously the payment companies, but all of the fintechs, and eventually all of the businesses, by all these layers that will be enabled, every business in the world will use this tech. And again, I would say that my personal thesis is, this is very similar to what we have in, I don't know, communications, right? Like, we're still having a phone call. I can call you, Andy, from my iPhone. But I could have called you also like 100 and something years ago, when Graham Bell invented the phone. But now we have better infrastructure. I can also text you. I can call you with, like video. I can send you very stupid memes on iMessage. I can do a lot of stuff that I couldn't, but I can do that because of infrastructure. We could just do more things. This is an infrastructure upgrade. So I guess that's like part of your question was, what's our thesis? Specifically about the network, the problem with a lot of these companies that are coming into our space, especially in the last 12 to 18 months, where there's a large, very big momentum due to regulation and other stuff, and more incumbents are coming in, more large payment companies, banks are coming in, right? We've probably been talking to more than 200 banks over the last 6 months that are coming in.
And they all want to launch stablecoins, don't they?
Well, we tell them that they shouldn't, right? Like, and this really bums up people. Like, the first question is, what's a stablecoin? The second question is, okay, should we issue a stablecoin? But no, then they actually form a good strategy, I hope. The thing is that a lot of these companies are coming in, and they now want to use stablecoins and send a payment to Mexico and send a payment to Africa, and they have no idea who to work over there. And because Fireblocks, as you said, has been, we've sort of been in the right place in the right time with the right tech. And 70% of the world's institutions runs on Fireblocks. We run 15% of all the blockchain transactions globally. This year will be about $5 trillion. So we run a lot of the infrastructure of these off-ramps in Mexico, in Singapore, in Brazil, and whatever. And what we really did is like bring all of our great partners and clients together into this one network and tell every client that comes in, hey, you want to now use this magic that called stablecoins to move money faster? Great. Here's a catalog of everyone in the world in 100 countries you can actually use and send money through. So that's the idea of the network. And again, the idea is that it's open, like if by the way, if Swift wants to connect to the network, come into the network, right?
And when you say network, we're not thinking like consensus-based node architecture here, like a blockchain. We're talking like a more distributed ledger kind of network, or a kind of more of like a database network. Just like, what exactly does network mean in this context?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Handy, because everyone right now is either issuing a stable coin or a layer one.
Yeah,
right?
or both, a stable coin layer one. We call it
exactly, which is exactly what we need, more layer ones. But no, it's neither of that. It's basically allowing Fireblocks to, because all of these people run on Fireblocks, then from within your workspace, within your API, whatever, you could access all of them programmatically over any blockchain, whatever you want, whatever coin you want to move through that. But because they're all on the Fireblocks network, there's a basic trust element and a basic way to communicate and move messages around and really create these payment flows end to end. Right. So no, it's not a blockchain. No, it's not a protocol. No, it's not. It's not DeFi. it's just a simple network. You can, in a way, mimics how Visa connects between different merchants and acquirers and whatnot.
Yep. Makes sense. So on this kind of note around people wanting to launch a stablecoin and people wanting to launch L1s, it does kind of seem like Fireblocks becomes an important, almost like middleware or part of the infrastructure stack for a lot of them. But also, I think there's a point to be made with regards to like just general competition. And so like Cloudflare, for example, just announced, their CEO comes out and says, look, there's a net dollar stablecoin for agentic web payments coming out. Like, this is a thing that we're going to be pushing. Agents are going to be interacting with each other in the wild using stablecoin based payments. Like, there's no credit card. There's no, 3-digit code on the back of their card. There's no expiration date. You don't have to KYC. You can just use an agentic wallet or agentic, account on chain. So I'm curious if you see, in this example, like Cloudflare's, stablecoin or other big tech stablecoins as a threat to what Fireblocks is trying to do, or do you see this as an opportunity for you guys to grow?
No, I think, first of all, I think that's awesome that these companies are coming in, and again, whether they're issuing, as we just laughed about, a stablecoin or a layer one, or if they're issuing AI agentic SDKs to do payments with stablecoins, I think all of that is great. And I think that, we're using Cloudflare and at Fireblocks. I'm sure if Cloudflare scales and needs to issue 1 billion wallets like what we do for a living, they'll probably go to a company, either Fireblocks or someone else, that's their main business. That said, that just the fact that they're issued that stablecoin, and that machine to machine, AI to AI, agent to agent payment is probably going to be something we're going to see a lot of, right? Like, people are now building these MCP servers. Yep. And I don't know if you got to cover this in the show already, but like this easy way for AI to communicate with your website or with your app, whatever. A lot of people are writing those things. These are called MCP servers, right? So there's really no great way to monetize those or to make a living if you've built a really good agent or a really good MCP server. But now with these payment SDKs that are coming out, this could all change. And I think this will also roll out to Fireblocks' world in a way, because there'll just be a lot more wallets, a lot more assets to move securely, and a lot more, let's call that, endpoints to connect on a network that is secured, which again talks to what we believe and what we do, right? And believe it or not, we're spending $40 million a year just on security, and we have 50 people on the payroll that are either our hackers or other security DevSecOps people. So this is like, obviously this is not a hobby, moving money securely. So I'm sure that, I'm very happy this is happening. I'm sure we'll find ourselves part of that mix eventually.
Yeah, cool. No, I mean, I think that is kind of like one element of what's happening is more of this commercial enterprise entry into the stablecoin and payments ecosystem from a lot of large players, as we already kind of alluded to and discussed. And then you've got like the government entry as well. You've got like World Liberty Fi, USD One. I think recently there was 9 major European banks forming a euro-backed stablecoin consortium, right? And thinking about ways. So I think like there's demand coming from both commercial and government level. I'm curious from the government level perspective, whether it be this European bank news or just generally the way that, Bo Hines left the Digital Assets Committee and joined USAT. So like there's just this government fuel demand happening as well, aligning with Secretary Bessent's $3 trillion of stablecoin supply by 2028. When it comes to the government creating demand for payments and for transactions on blockchains, how does Fireblocks capture that? Like, how do you make that regulated demand something that comes to Fireblocks? The wait is over. The Talus testnet is live. Be part of the revolution. Join now at testnet.talus.network. Relay, low fees, lightning speed, and the power of multi-chain at your fingertips. Instant multi-chain payments. Choose any token on any chain. 75 plus networks supported. More than 5 million users. 8 billion plus volume processed. 70 million plus transactions, fast, reliable, everywhere. Start swapping today, only on Relay. Blockchain shortcuts, templates, and widgets launch without friction. For builders, by builders. Visit enso.build.
Andy, how do you think of all these texts? Like, I've seen the write-up before the show. It contained 10% of what you just said. Like, is your brain connected to Twitter directly to a prompt generator?
Dude, we do this a lot. I'm actually trying to make my questions shorter.
That is
keep them, nice.
That is crazy. Concise. That's a lot of knowledge in one question. Look, I mean, so first of all, let's talk about the bank thing, right? Banks are obviously not a big fan of stablecoins. I don't think it would shock anyone, because as a business, obviously a stablecoin is not good for a bank. They cannot hold your money one for one as a reserve, because that prevents them from rehypothecating it and making money on loans and interest, which is fair. That's their business model. But they have to play this game right now. they have to play this game because, as I said it before, they have to be connected to this payments rail. So right now with stablecoins, I think that will evolve over time, by the way. I think that, what is that we're using today, this dollar pegged asset, I think it will change in nature, maybe to a tokenized deposit, maybe to something else, whatever. Now, obviously, what everyone is wondering, and you and me are sort of joking about, is why is no one putting an emphasis on interoperability, right? And then comes this consortium of banks and says, hey, you know what? Like, we're 9 banks. We've created this euro coin that's interoperable between us, at least, which I think is great.
Yep.
And I think that over time, what we'll see is probably more coins become interoperable. Our way to move that is obviously, as we provide the infrastructure to a lot of those, we're telling them, listen, here's your chance, because you guys are all running on the same infrastructure.
Yeah.
Just build this interoperable from inception, which a lot of them do. So that's like our also, in a way, push towards that path, which I hope more will see. But what I think is sort of happening right now is, the banks are really experimenting with stablecoins in a way. It will evolve probably within a year or two to something they can actually use in a business model. And then the government, at some point where the banks have tested this enough, it will probably reach the place where, we all thought it will already be there, but like the governments themselves, right? And what we've seen up until now, and, governments are not, the US government has been holding Bitcoin since 2013, yep, probably even yep, before. Like, there's people in the government, they know what they're doing with digital assets. And up until now, they've been using tools, right? They've been using companies, like us. They've been using Chainalysis. I think that was very public, right? So I think as this, momentum will continue from the payment companies to the fintechs to the banks, later on to the government entities, then I think all of the people who are now providing these type of services, like Fireblocks, like Chainalysis of the world, will probably grow to be companies who serve governments, just like Amazon, by the way, grew to have a government cloud, right? And by the way, this is why, I'm sorry to say this, stuff like, I'm not trying to shamelessly promote Fireblocks. I'm just saying this is why I'm excited to work at Fireblocks, because if the world continues on this trend, then you will have probably 100x more subscribers, and Fireblocks will probably have 100x more clients. And which means we're like 1% of the company we could be a few years from now, which is why I get up in the morning. So
it's exciting.
I hope that answered all of your questions.
Yeah. Okay. And so, all right. So that is like unpacking why there actually is a need for essentially this payments network that you're building, because when you look at all these stable coins or these, types of tokenized assets that people are trying to issue, we've already seen them go to interoperability providers like Chainlink, Wormhole, et cetera, and be like, okay, we want to have the interoperability within the blockchain ecosystem. But what Fireblocks can essentially provide is what I would consider the interoperability for everything outside of that. So bank-to-bank communication, on and off ramps, last mile, exiting into local currencies and into local, commercial banks. Maybe you could just a bit further unpack the core kind of service that Fireblocks network brings, because you guys are doing about $200 billion right now in stablecoin flows per month. So I'm kind of curious, like, is that like I'm trading on an exchange and then you guys are settling that, or I'm sending that from Peru to Bolivia? Maybe kind of explain a bit of exactly what the core service is and who that target market is. And then we can start to think about and understand who's using and what's powering this, current monthly flow.
Yeah. So powerful question. So let's look at that $200 billion a month of stablecoins, right? So this year probably we'll end up processing, I want to say something like $2.7 trillion of stablecoins. Let's take an example of 200 billion. 50% of that is attributed to trading, and about 50% of that is attributed to payments. So when I say trading, I mean, exchanges run on Fireblocks, OTC desks run on Fireblocks, whatever, hedge funds. That's all goes to that bucket. The other 50% are real payment companies, the like WorldPay, like Visa, like Bridge, it's powering Stripe, like those type of companies, but also the B2B companies like OpenPaid and Zodia Markets and Conduit. And let's take one of those companies and really talk about a use case that will help also understand the narrative of the network, right? So let's say we have, I think Conduit is a great example, right? So Conduit is this company that helps importers and exporters pay large amounts of dollars, really, for containers they're importing to Brazil, for example. So they'll be in Brazil, they'll get Brazilian real from someone, they'll convert it to a stable coin. Now they're thinking, I want to work with someone in Singapore. I do not know anyone in Singapore. I do not speak the local language. I do not know what's going on there. But if I go to the Fireblocks network, I see there's like 2 providers that work in Singapore. Here's the currencies they work at. Here's what I need to do to open an account. I click, I open an account, and then I connect it to my Fireblocks world, and I just send that new provider, let's say Zodia Markets that operate in Singapore, I send them the stable coin. They then convert that back to Sing dollars and send it to whoever I ask them, right? So I can be a business in one country and develop my payment flows, my off-ramps or my on-ramps in different countries without traveling there, just because I'm part of the Fireblocks network. I can be introduced to those businesses and integrate with them with one click, right? So that's the magic of that network. And I can, when I do business with them, I get all my reconciliation data normalized because it's all on the same platform. I get all my trading data. I get whatever just from the same platform I use for my daily treasury management. So that's the concept of the network.
And would you say like that B2B kind of cross-border payment flow is where is driving a lot of the demand growth?
So it's driving 40% probably of the volume. Another something like 25% is payouts to gig economy employees, creator. That has been, by the way, the largest growing segment within payments.
Is that like Uber and like Grab and that type of stuff, or?
So I mean, I know Grab does that, but I'm not aware of Uber. But you'd be surprised. It's actually a lot of these businesses like Scale AI that have like 10,000 payments they need to pay. They use Bridge to do that. Bridge uses Fireblocks. Boom, you get like hundreds of thousands of payments, right? So it's a lot of those type of companies, a lot of marketplaces, a lot of actually payroll companies starting to get on this. And I think the wave I'm seeing right now, and I think you'll see it over the next 3 months, I would say that this last quarter or next 6 months would be the remittance companies. So you've already seen Remitly making announcements, MoneyGram that has done like wallets with CrossMint. I think the remittance companies are getting on this train, and you'll probably see a lot of them coming in. And that's like $1 trillion market. So that's going to be interesting.
That's like Western Union is using stablecoins instead of whatever they're currently using at scale in the future type of thing.
Yeah.
That's huge. Okay, cool. One question about that though. When I am sending a stablecoin from, let's call it Brazil to Miami, my cousins are in Miami. I'm in Brazil, let's say this. And I'm a first-time user, and I'm sending a stablecoin to like an OX address or like a name in an account. I don't understand that this is an unreversible or non-reversible transaction. Like maybe it's my first time. I'm curious, like Circle's been hinting at exploring reversible USDC transactions. I'm curious if you think like chargebacks or reconciliations or pullbacks from payments for blockchain or for in these kind of like fintechy apps is going to make a big, comeback or a big entrance into the scene. To me, it seems logical, but I could also see it being like, no, we don't need that. We can just get it right the first time and because when I go to Venmo somebody, there's no like pullback option. Sure, on PayPal, if you do a payment for services or goods, you could do a chargeback process. Venmo, maybe you could, but it feels permanent in today's world already. So maybe consumers are used to that. I don't know. Curious your perspective.
Well, I think, I think here's like an uncomfortable truth, right? So the reason that fiat works and most payments are done on fiat still and not on digital assets is because there's trust in that closed loop ecosystem. And banks, whether you like banks or not, you like Swift or not, it doesn't matter. They have a way to communicate and say, hey, I'm going to send you money. Here's the one who's sending you this. Do you want to receive it on this, to this recipient? They do their own checks, whatever. Eventually they say yes. You feel like it's taking a century, maybe sometimes, but it's safe. There's even like a way to reverse that if you need to, right? And when you do commerce, which is not probably the same as P2P, right? As you say, Venmo, you send it, it's done. You send to your cousin, it's done, right? Talk to your cousin. But if you pay a store, you do expect as a consumer, like, this is why we've created consumer protection. So I really think that actually bringing those, schemes and let's call that even behavior protocols into a blockchain makes perfect sense, because we want, you can say that banks are horrible, fine. But I'm not saying you're saying it, but like people can say that, but we want banks to run on stablecoins as well, or some sort of digital asset. So we'll be able to move money 24/7. If we want that, we need to give this industry the tools to implement that and still have the precautions they need to operate. And this time, because they're using programmatic money, and programmatic may be forms of identity, then maybe that whole process where a bank talks to one another and asks questions about the identity of the sender or the receiver, maybe this time it can take like 3 minutes instead of 2 days, because we've given them the tools. So I think part of this is giving them the tools. So I'm actually all for it. I don't get invited to crypto parties, but
Hibachi. Provable. Trade perps with speed and security. Earn rewards. Visit hibachi.xyz. Trading on fire. The future runs on intelligence. Creativity, engineering, health, money, productivity. AI promised utopia, but delivered only hype. Black box models and zero accountability. With tons of tools claiming to be the best, how do you know what's real? Introducing Recall Find. Top models ranked by transparent reputation from researchers, users, and developers. Test AI skills, curate favorites, and compete to see what works. Don't guess what's good, recall it. So it's almost like how Ethereum came on and took the idea of Bitcoin, and kind of made it programmable. We're basically looking at the payments landscape of stablecoins and payments as they exist in like any blockchain today, and almost being like, okay, here's the tools that we have, presenting this to the parties interested, and then maybe thinking about like a programmable refund capability, or a programmable verification of a sender and a recipient, rather than like doing like a chargebacks. So it's like creating that same level of interoperability that you would expect from Swift, but just doing it in like blockchain infrastructure, to create this kind of like interoperable functionality.
Yeah, this is like, Visa and MasterCard have their own rule book of how you can get, a refund, right? Swift has their own rule book. Pix, by the way, has one as well as Pay, as well as everyone. This is how payment systems need to work, because sometimes people make mistakes. It's fine. The fact we're introducing this to the blockchain doesn't mean that we're destroying blockchains. We can still have distributed ways to make decisions that prevent centralization if we want to, right? But it doesn't mean that we don't need to provide the right tools to build a reliable system.
Yeah,
that's my point.
So we're deeply in this neobank meta, is what I'm going to call it today, which is, I'm a crypto company. I create a phone app. I allow people to earn yield on stables. I allow people to send stables and do some form of lending in the app, give cash back on a card, have 1/10 of the margins of a traditional bank, or if you look at it the other way, 90% better, 24/7 settlement, stablecoins with instant transactions and free payments. And we're putting this on an easy ass app. You're just going to open it every day and you're not going to use your bank account anymore. And you can use the card to spend. And you just got to be topping up your Bitcoin or your ETH and then borrow against it, get that money to spend. You don't have to sell your crypto. And all of a sudden, you're just completely outside of having a full credit card. You're pretty much there. This is a business that could explode. What's your read on this?
So first of all, that sounds like WireX, Coca, Dollar App, Cheaper Cash, Cinco, like a lot of apps that are trying to make in a way Revolut, right?
Yeah,
that is trying to do this. The reality is, and this is interesting, there was the first wave of fintechs that obviously were built on top of banks, but they gave you a better interface to that, what we all experience as, like a horrible experience, right? And then these fintechs are now sort of being disrupted by this, as you're calling it, the neo wave of fintechs, right? Neo fintechs, yeah. Because these fintechs, like, have been around for like 10 to 15 years. So if they've built things a certain way with licensing on banks as they were required, now they need to make this infrastructure jump into the next generation. Some are going to make it, some are not. So some fintechs will evolve probably into these neo fintechs. I think Revolut has done that jump of creating their own exchange eventually, right? And a lot of those things, Robinhood, you can say with tokenizing stocks, they definitely made that jump. And some probably won't, right?
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting play to see what's happening there.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be hard for some of them to adjust to the real-time nature of blockchain and just the technical shift. But the advantage is, I think of like EtherFi or Plasma with their Plasma One thing that they've recently announced, or even, some of the work that, you could see on Stripe's Tempo chain or, these types of things. And sure, some, like Robinhood or Revolut might take a while to figure it all out, but they have like, a 250 million customers ready to use anything at any given moment on that day. Whereas like, Plasma, EtherFi are looking over their shoulder at like, all right, we got like, 250 rich crypto degens who are going to spend some money because they're rich. We even need to target that base is another interesting question, actually.
Yeah, I have to ask you a question. Do you think, just based on what you said, do you think that when Tempo comes out, like 6 months after, do you think that companies who are not Stripe's customers, what do you think would be the usage? Would other payment companies adopt this as well? That's what I'm like wondering recently.
Yeah, or like even if it's better, would their incentives be aligned in such a way that it would make it would harm them to even use it, right? And so I think like if they're seeing Stripe as a direct competitor to what they're doing, which they likely would, then I would think that they wouldn't use it. And then I think that they would just probably fork it or adopt it or adopt a similar version of it. It's hard to see Stripe coming out with a bang on this and then other payment companies just being like, we're going to concede because Stripe is the best blockchain ever. Tempo is the best L1. We're just going to use Tempo. I just feel like, insert payment company here would just be like, okay, well, if they can do it, we'll just do it. So
yeah, no, it's interesting because in a way, Stripe isn't Tempo, Tempo isn't Stripe, but because it felt like, there were obviously a big part of the announcement, it felt like it is, but maybe Tempo will end up being like this really amazing chain. And yes, Stripe is an investor, but maybe that's it. Maybe, by the way, we'll see more payment companies investing in Tempo, and that could be interesting. Like maybe they'll create that. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm
trying to pull up this tweet from Mike Dudas about this. He said it's kind of like a funny like meme tweet, but it was like something about bridge and privy. Basically, like here, Stripe buying bridge and privy for $1.5 billion total is going to look like Instagram level theft in a few years. Do you buy it or cop or drop that? What do you think?
I agree 100%. Honestly, it's actually a really good comparison.
I mean, it's definitely a steal. It's just a matter of like, what kind of return could you expect on that? But I suppose if Tempo becomes one of the largest payments chains, then acquiring bridge and privy for $1.5 billion is going to look like pennies compared to their total tempo token allocation or equity.
I mean, it's not just that. Like, if Bridge is making, and I don't remember if they ever actually showed the numbers other than in certain events, but let's assume it's making $500 million, $500 million in EBITDA, or then if that move eventually allows them to be the first mover in stablecoins, AI, agentic, which, by the way, go to every AI marketplace, there's a Stripe module there already, right? If they are able to capture that, just think about what happened in AI recently in the last 18 months, and what's the revenue of OpenAI? What's the revenue of Anthropic, right? If you think about that, if those on top of those platforms, there'll be even more value created, which Stripe can actually connect to as a processor and put their chain on and use stablecoins to do that, because this whole AI world will run on stablecoins 100%, right?
For sure.
Then yeah, maybe that could be like another Stripe was actually created just by acquiring those two companies, right? Like a crypto-based Stripe was created. Anyway,
I want to drill down a bit on this X402 thing. We didn't have it necessarily prepped, but I'm just going to read you something. Basically, back in the 1990s, web architects reserved HTTP status code 402 for quote unquote payment required, but traditional payment systems like credit cards proved too slow and expensive for microtransactions and insert blockchains. So Coinbase comes out in May saying X402 resurrects its dormant standard. It lets websites flag premium content during HTTP requests. When you or your AI agent hits paywalled content, the browser automatically handles a crypto micropayment and unlocks access instantly. No redirects, no logins. It's built for chains on Ethereum. X402 enables transactions as small as a fraction of a cent, transferring the web into a kind of pay per use marketplace. And then there's also kind of the ERC 8004, a universal standard for agents to discover services, identities, and transact. Each agent gets a blockchain passport, quote unquote, for reputational checks, and this should extend agent to agent P2P kind of usage. So that is what is happening, and it sounds like this is probably the preface for Cloudflare's announcement with stablecoins. Later, came about 3 months later. I just wanted to just flag that, make sure that the audience gets to understand that, and just give you a chance to kind of sound off on this. I know we touched on it a bit, but maybe just give us the fireworks or the Fireblocks roadmap for agentic payments and how you guys are thinking about integrating them.
So first of all, I have to respond about that, ACP 402 status codes thing that the Coinbase released. I think it was a really sad moment for me, because I was, these moments when you think, how the hell didn't I think of that? Like, that was like, that's really good.
It was obvious.
I was like looking at this and I'm like, I should have thought about that. Those status codes, a lot of people, anyway, that's good. So, I don't know if it will catch or not, but I was thinking to myself, that is something I can work with. And by the way, Brian Armstrong is in Israel next week. If I'll see him, I'll definitely tag him on this one. Yeah. But I thought to myself, that could work. The Cloudflare thing, then I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I started seeing more people sort of riffing on that. So I think that will that's good. That's a good start. The reality is, that's still not a solved problem. Just the fact that they, thought about this, which is really cool, still means that everyone needs to implement something to support it. Yes, they're using the HTTP protocol, which means like the network layer in a way is solved. How do you move the message? You still need to interpret the message, which has been the hard part in, distributing, these type of protocols. The way we're thinking, the other side of your question was how we're thinking about agentic payments. Well, the way we're sort of, we believe eventually, everyone would need to run a wallet. Our goal in a way is you can think about us like, I would say like the Intel of security, which is like, we have this microchip. how do we make it smaller, 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 and make it better, better, better? So how can we as Fireblocks make the wallets that we create, and we've created more than 1 billion of them, for our customers, how do we make them smaller so they could be agentic AI size, let's call them, but also more efficient so they could run even at a faster pace than what they're running right now, but still maintain the security and, in a way, the enterprise protection you expect when you use Fireblocks. Because if Microsoft, just as a thought experiment, will allow every Xbox developer or Xbox box to have like this micro wallet in the box, right? So they still expect some sort of enterprise governance and control over that, but they still want everyone to have a wallet. And those that's like millions, tens, hundreds of millions of people. So that's how we're thinking about how we're making our technology faster, better for that. And we have released like our own MCP server, obviously SDKs to handle like AI. But I feel like as an industry of crypto and AI, two buzzwords you should not be saying in the same sentence, but we're still really at the early days of exploring how the interfaces even look like. So I think a year from now, I'll be smarter. Today, I can tell you, I think everyone's guessing, and we're trying to guess as well.
Yeah. I got to ask you, Goldi, before we go, rumors on the street is that Fireblocks has a big IPO coming after posting just absolutely crushing revenue numbers quarter over quarter. It's going to be a huge year for the guys over there. Got a big smile on your face.
Yeah, no, I wish. I mean, first of all, I vote for whoever is has those rumors, and please talk to me. I have equity, but I think I think this wave that's happening right now, I think we're still trying to build Fireblocks. As I told you, this business could be like 100x bigger. We're still building. Are we ready today to go public? Probably not. Will we ever be public? I don't know. That's up to the market probably eventually.
I think so. Buddy.
But yeah, it's a good time to go public. I wish every company going public right now, best of luck.
Yeah. Goldi, man, I appreciate your time. Thanks for the segment. It's been a good one. And I guess just last thing, just to close you out, I didn't really get to mention much about any of the work that you're doing with Polygon, but they obviously hooked us up on the appearance today. Maybe you can just give us a little tease as to what you guys are doing together.
Yeah. So first of all, Polygon is one of those chains that we've been partnering with very early on. The reason behind this is that they're not just thinking about, how can we support the latest fad or whatever that is. They've been building payment related protocols for the last, I think, 4 years. And what we've been working with Polygon on is mainly how are we bringing more payments businesses online? What does it take behind the scenes at the protocol level to do it, at the liquidity level? And they've just been a great partners for, actually bringing more businesses on chain probably than a lot of other blockchains. So super helpful in that. Thank you, by the way, Polygon, if you're listening.
Yeah, thanks, Goldi, man. I appreciate your time. Very insightful, and I enjoyed it. I feel like I learned quite a bit of just about generally how this payments, kind of landscape is actually panning out. It's unsexy. It's really not that appealing to people, but it's really the most important thing that's happening in crypto right now. So it's funny how these paradoxes of industry maturation happen, and everyone's focused on whatever like the latest freaking plasma meme coin is, or whatever the yield farm is, or the NFT hyperliquid drop. And it's like, no, we're actually doing cross-border remittances at scale right now. Like, it's happening. So
yeah, we're actually changing. We are actually changing the world, and you didn't think you'll hear that in crypto. So,
exactly.
So yeah, thank you for having me, Andy. This was great.
All righty, man. Thank you.